have been trying to make this video for about a week now. Last week, my daughter Gray turned 3 months, and so I just wanted to kind of give an update about where we're at, where she's at, where our son is at, where we're at, and then where I am at as well in terms of my body, my mental health, etc. So she is down for a nap right now. Fingers crossed that she actually has a good nap. My son is off with his grandparents, which means that today is a GSD day. So I'm going to try to get as much stuff done as I possibly can, starting with this video. So let's jump right into it. Let's start to talk about my daughter Gray first of all. She has made, my goodness, it's like she hit 3 months and things completely started to change. She's much more responsive. She laughs at us. She's giggling. She tries to communicate with us. In terms of her physical development, she is gaining weight like crazy. And she's long, but she is also a thick baby as well. So not having any issues with getting her to nurse and to actually use the nutrition that she is taking in. Okay, so one of the biggest things at 3 months is sleep. Let's be honest. If a baby is sleeping well, then the whole family seems to do a whole heck of a lot better. So I've been trying for almost a week now to get her into a little bit more of a habit, into more of a routine when it comes to sleep. I know that it is still a little bit early to be trying to sleep train her, although some people would argue otherwise. I do what I feel is best for, first of all, my daughter, what I think is best for me, and then what is going to be best for our family as a whole. So I don't necessarily want to be sticking to a rigid sleep routine, but I do want to be creating some healthy habits for my daughter so that she can become an effective sleeper, I guess. So here's what we've been doing, or I guess what I have mostly been doing. So let's start with the morning. She usually wakes up around 7 a.m. and then from that point on, I'll give her a feed. She'll have some playtime, and then I usually try to put her back down for her first nap at about after an hour and 15 minutes from when she has first woken up. I usually find she starts to get tired around the 1 hour mark. And then by an hour 15, an hour and a half, then that's when we've got to that point where she's starting to get overtired. So she goes down for her first nap then. The nap typically lasts about 1 hour, but she's kind of been all over the place with her napping. Some of her naps have only been as long as 30 minutes. And those 30-minute naps are really problematic because it tricks her body into thinking that she has had restorative sleep, the restorative sleep that she would get from a 1 to 3 hour nap, but she in fact has not had that much sleep. So she wakes up, she thinks that she's had a great nap, and then it's tricky. You can see that she's tired. But anyways, so she does still have some of those naps, so we're working on that as well. Then she'll get up after that first nap. I keep her up for about an hour and a half. At that point, follow the same routine. We feed, she'll have some playtime. I oftentimes will nurse her to get her to go back to sleep for her next nap. I know that you're not necessarily supposed to do that, but that is just at this point what works for us. She's not a huge fan of the pacifier either, which has made things a little bit more challenging. So we'll work on cutting out that feed before nap later on, but right now we're just focusing on creating some kind of routine, hopefully getting her to nap in her crib where possible, and it's one step at a time. We'll get there. All right, so that nap is usually one of her longer ones, her second nap, so that's anywhere between 1 and 3 hours usually. Then she'll get up again. Again, we've got 1.5 to 2 hours usually for this awake time, and then she goes back down for another nap. Sometimes that one will just be a very quick one, depending on how close we're getting to bedtime, or sometimes I'll let her have a little bit of a longer one. My son, who's 3 years old, we start his bedtime routine at 6 p.m. I know, sounds crazy early, but he also gets up at about 5 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 5:30. And that is just because that is a routine that he has sort of maintained since lockdown and quarantine, etc. happened. So we've always been a very early rising family. We have to in order to get out the door in the morning so that we can get to work. And he has just kind of maintained that routine, and it's fine with us. So We start his bedtime at 6 p.m. We usually start Gray's bedtime somewhere around the same time. So sometimes it's a little bit earlier, sometimes it's 5:30, depending on how long she's been awake. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 6:30. So the objective is to have about half an hour in her room with her, doing a full bedtime routine. So we sing songs, she has a nursing session, we talk a little bit, etc. And then the goal is to have her in bed half an hour after we've gone into her room. So then she will usually go down for about half an hour in her crib, no problem. Then she'll often wake up, and she usually wants to cluster feed until about 10 o'clock. It seems to be, as the days are starting to get a little bit shorter right now, honestly, it's not necessarily associated with time. It seems to be more associated with when the sun sets. So as soon as it is completely pitch black in her room, then it's an indicator for her, or seems to be, that she is going to sleep for the night. So she's usually asleep for the night by 9:30, 10 o'clock-ish. And then depending on the night, sometimes she'll wake up once, sometimes she'll wake up twice, and sometimes she won't wake up at all. So on the nights when she's up once, she's usually up around 3 a.m. On the nights where she is up twice, she'll usually wake around 12 and then 4. And then on the nights where she sleeps right through, she'll sleep from 10 p.m. until 4 a.m. And that's really only happened twice. So I don't really know that I can say that she does that regularly yet. But anyways, and then she will have another kind of little siesta type cat nap, and she'll go back down until about 7 a.m. or so. And that brings us back to the next day. So that's our sleep. That's what we're trying to do right now, just trying to create those healthy habits, and then we'll tweak that as we go. I tried sleep training my son much earlier. It was okay. It was, again, what worked for us at the time. I was much more rigid about it. And this time I'm just kind of like going with the flow. Baby number 2 is so much different than the first time that you're going through all of this. Easier almost? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Just different. Just very, very different. And the two of them are very different as well. So that takes me into my son Hawk. He's been doing really well. He is such a good big brother. He absolutely adores her. What I have been trying to do with him is, because so often things can become so much about the baby, and I wanted to try to make sure that he was still getting all of the attention and love, etc., that he needs. So when he first gets up in the morning, he has time with my wife, and they just do their little breakfast routine, etc. I get up shortly after that, and then once he's finished breakfast, then we do what we call learning time. And I'm doing that for 2 reasons. One is because I want to make sure that he has had some serious Hawk and mama time. And 2 is because he was in preschool prior to coronavirus. And I don't know when he's going back. They have opened back up for, well, he could be going back in September. They're open now, but the spaces are limited. They used to have 75 spaces available. Now they have 24. Do I want him going back in September? I don't know. So I have at this point deferred his enrollment until January. I might keep him out for this full year and then send him to junior kindergarten the following fall, but haven't decided on that. So anyways, that's part of the reason that I'm doing this learning time. So we're focusing on some math, learning our numbers, focusing on a little bit on literacy, and then pattern recognition, etc. So starting very, very basic. I will cover more of that later. We're following kind of a Montessori type approach with his learning time. And yeah, I'll get back to all of that stuff in another video. So he's doing pretty well with that. Making sure that his bucket is full in the morning helps to make sure that we have had helps us to ensure that we're going to have a much smoother day. If he's not getting the attention that he needs, then things typically go downhill very, very fast, as is normal with a 3-year-old. In terms of regressions, he hasn't had too many regressions. He did have a little bit of a regression in terms of his potty training. And recently he's been having, I don't even know if you could call it a regression in terms of his sleep, but his dreams have become a lot more vivid. So he's actually been waking up in the middle of the night and coming into the nursery to wake me up. And then I usually get my wife and have her take him back to bed. The other thing I have noticed about my son since he turned 3 years old is that he is a sponge. He is taking in everything all the time, even when we think that he's not. So sometimes we think that we're just having a conversation amongst ourselves, and then next thing we know, I'll see him repeating exactly what I said or exactly what my wife had said, or mimicking our behaviors. So for instance, I took him to the splash pad yesterday. Parks still are not open here, but splash pads are. Thank goodness, it at least gives us somewhere to go. So we went to a splash pad yesterday, and next thing I know, I look over and he has kind of bent over and he's looking at another girl who's, I'd say she's probably about 1 year old, and he's encouraging her to jump through the sprinkler. So he's saying to her, he's like, come on, you can do it, you can do it. And it was just really interesting to see that he is now modeling and copying exactly what we do with him, or what we do with each other, or what we do with our daughter Gray. Super cool. But we also have to be very mindful that of the language that we're using now, because he has also been kind of trying that stuff on for size as well. So time to tweak that a little bit, and just we need to be mindful that he is listening all the time. All right, let's talk next about us. Marriage with 2 kids. This is really tricky because the pandemic is still happening. My wife is still working from home. A lot of things are still closed, or the world is still just different. So when the whole pandemic started and we went into lockdown or quarantine or whatever you want to call it on March 13th, we had said that this is either going to be great for couples, or we're going to see a whole heck of a lot of divorces when we come out on the other side of things. So things might be totally different if my wife was working and if things were open. I don't know. But it has actually been really nice for us. And we were actually just talking this morning about how much our son has changed, and she has been so grateful that she has had the opportunity to be at home and not be out working for 9 to 10 hours a day and missing seeing all of these things. And same thing with our daughter. She's had an opportunity to see all of these things. And when they go down to bed at night, we've already had an opportunity to kind of touch base throughout the day. So we sit down, we enjoy each other's company a little bit, and then we go our separate ways. We're both very much introverts, so she goes down to have her gaming time, and I usually watch some kind of terrible TV show that's completely uneducational while I fold the laundry. So we love having that balance between having time for us as a couple as well as having our own individual time. And that takes me into my next point, which is me and where I'm at 3 months postpartum. Again, this is completely different where I'm at now than where I was at when my son was 3 months old. I bounced back really, really quickly after having him. I had a C-section with him as well, so I wasn't allowed to exercise a ton. I was just up for regular walks, etc., for about the first 7 weeks, and then I was able to start going back to the gym after that. I don't have a gym right now because the gym is closed. We've got sort of a garage gym, and that's about the extent of it. So my training has been completely different. I'm trying to run. I'm trying to get out there and run 4.6 kilometers. Check out my other video on that. It's for George Floyd. But trying to do that a few times a week at least. And then I'm also trying to do a little bit of strength training to get my core back. So my core this time has not recovered the same way that it did with my son at all. I still have a huge gap between my abs. I can stick my fingers right in. So I do need to really focus on tightening that up and getting rid of that gap. I think that once I do that, that's going to help with all of my other activities. So with running, with lifting, everything. So that's going to be the next thing that I focus on. And I think I'm going to be using a little mini workout series by Sarah Therese. I'm going to start with phase 1 and just see if I can kind of work my way through that and hopefully help to correct my abs. I will link that down below as well if you would like to check that out for yourself and give it a go. Disclaimer, make sure that you check with a doctor before starting any kind of workout routine. I trust in myself. I know my body, everything. I trust in my knowledge, and I don't really feel that I need to do that, but you know, you should. So that's my body. And my body often determines how I'm feeling about everything else as well. I want to feel good. If I feel healthy, then I find that really helps my mental health as well. And then I'm a better person for everyone else. It also helps with hormones. I find that exercise helps tremendously in order to regulate my hormones. But really interesting thing is that when I'm nursing, my hormones actually happen to be, or seem to be, a whole heck of a lot better than they are when I'm not nursing. I don't really understand that. I've heard a lot of women say that it's the complete opposite for them, and so they just want to be done nursing as quickly as possible. Not me. I nursed my son until he was 2 years old. A month after I stopped nursing is when I got pregnant with Gray. I don't know. Pregnancy hormones, nursing hormones, they're good for my body. They're good for me somehow. Okay. I think I'm going to do some pictures as well. I will hopefully include those for you guys in the video so you can kind of see where my body is at 3 months postpartum. The reason that I want to do that is because I want to know what other women's bodies look like at 3 months postpartum so that I know if I'm on track, if I'm doing the right things, or if I need to kind of tweak things. One thing that my wife and I have started to tweak within this last week is our nutrition. So we're using calories, we're looking at calories, but what we're really focusing on is the breakdown of macros. So the breakdown between carbohydrates, protein, and fat. We have selected different percentages for each of those based on where we're at. So she is training, she's lifting about, I'm gonna say 4 to 6 times per week right now. I'm obviously doing much more cardio, plus I'm nursing, which means that I still do need to make sure that I'm getting about an additional 300 calories per day in order to make sure that my quality of milk for Gray is good. So my breakdown of macros is a little bit different. So I have more carbohydrates, I have more fats, and then my protein is a little bit less. So far, it's been going pretty well. I actually think that I came out of the gate a little bit too fast. I wasn't quite meeting my overall caloric goal each day for the last week, and I found that on my run yesterday that I just felt very, very heavy. And so I got on the scale and I've actually lost more weight than I had initially intended. So my goal was to be losing about ½ pound of fat per week, and I have already exceeded that. So I've lost more weight than I had originally intended. And I know some people might be like, oh wow, that's fantastic, that's a good thing. But to me, that's not a good thing. It's never a good thing to be losing weight too fast. It should be a very, very gradual process. And if my weight stays the same, then that's okay with me. But the fact that my energy level was low, to me, was a sign that I wasn't getting what I needed. So I yesterday really focused on making sure that I met my caloric goal. I'm going to be focusing on that for the next few days as well. See if that makes a difference. If it doesn't, then I might change up my breakdown of macros. So that breakdown between the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. But I will update you on that later. Okay, that's about it for today. I think that is my whole 3-month postpartum summary. My daughter actually napped this entire time, so that is fantastic. What am I gonna do now? If you found this video helpful, please do go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you like the content of my videos so far, then feel free to subscribe as well. Thanks so much for watching today, and we'll see you later. Bye.